Today is Tuesday, October 10th, and it is 4:08 p.m., and I will call this meeting to order. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the board's decision. And to ensure that the appeal is filed in a timely manner, that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. I will now entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I know.
So up next, we have our public comment period. We have one person who is presently signed up to speak, and before we get started on that, I just wanted to make sure that anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on any topic, well, first, before we start that, I want to entertain a motion to be able to allow anyone present to make a comment if they so choose.
I'll make the motion for discussion. So is the reason I think, are we required by state law to limit it to actionable items, or are we allowed to have it more broadly?
We're not required to. We're not required to limit it to that. It's a suggestion. We can amend it, and that was a discussion when we were voting on this, that we can amend it. We can amend it to allow discussion.
We are required to provide a public comment period, but there is no requirement as to how long the comment period should be. You're allowed to make limitations, which is what you did at one of the past meetings, and I believe you limited it to 2 minutes. So right now, the bylaws have been amended to add have a public comment period where each speaker is limited to 2 minutes pertaining to certain action items on the agenda.
Man, I'm sorry, we're getting a lot of feedback. Thank y'all for looking at that. And my question, just to make sure, so in our bylaws, we're supposed to limit it to actionable items, but are we allowed to suspend that rule to allow comment on any topic? I'm in favor of the general concept. I just want to make sure we stay in line with the bylaws.
I'm pulling up the bylaws right now to be sure, but the state law requires that the public comment period pertain to action items, and then the board can choose however they want to proceed. But I will pull up the bylaws. Just give me 1 minute. So your bylaws, section 5D is the Open Meetings Act section, which reads, all meetings of the Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners shall be open to the public pursuant to the Tennessee Open Public Meetings Act, TCA, section 844, 101 et sec. And then subsection 1 is public comment, which states, the Fair Board will designate time at the beginning of each regularly scheduled meeting for general public comment and is limited to 2 minutes per person with a maximum comment period of 16 minutes. Comments must relate to an actionable item on the published agenda. Public comment periods will not be held for any meeting where there are no actionable items on the agenda. The chair may recognize Metro Council members to speak first. Sign-up sheets will be provided no later than 30 minutes prior to the meeting for members of the public requesting to speak to record their own names. The Fair Board shall take all practicable steps to ensure that opposing viewpoints are represented fairly, if any.
One follow-up question, if I could, Mr. Chairman, for Metro Legal. So, and I know we had sort of an intent there, but what does action item even mean? I mean, like, I agree with where I think you're going, Jasper, which is I would like to have public comment as broadly as possible here, and I would think anything related to the facility is relatively actionable. So number one, for today, if anyone wants to talk about any of the ongoing projects, I would like to hear it. But number two, if we need to amend the bylaws to clarify that, I think we need to do it. But to me, I think we should view an actionable item as anything related to any of the tenants on the facility or any parts of the facility.
I thought we talked about that last time. But I may be mistaken.
It was, yes, it was, and it said, and we discussed that we will be able to suspend the rules to allow, for a public comment period.
I'm with you then. Yeah.
Chair, may I add? You may also choose to hold public hearings on certain matters as well, if it's not specifically related to the agenda item. However, you would have to provide proper notice of that public hearing prior to any meeting.
So, thank you. So, with that said, I would like to suspend the rules to allow public comment period for 2 minutes per individual with a maximum of 16 minutes total. So first signed up is Shane Smiley. Oh, did we get a second? I need a second.
So moved. Seconded, sorry.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Smiley, thank you, sorry.
Good afternoon, Shane Smiley, Brush Hill Road. I'd like to commend you on that action of it's a large facility, a lot going on. People should be able to come up and comment on anything that they want to during that time. So if that means going through and amending the bylaws, I highly encourage this board to do so. What is actionable on tonight is the Speedway contract. There are some things at the Speedway that need to be addressed, and they're the responsibility of Metro to be handling. The scoreboard needs light bulbs. The scoreboard's so old, it barely works, but it's embarrassing when you have people coming from all over the country to show up in the light bulb, you can't even read what numbers are on the leaderboard. That needs to be addressed. The sound system is the worst in the county. It has been for 20 years. We've been promised time after time that there have been funds there, that those funds always end up going to some other project, and we don't see the sound system improved. If you want this facility to be successful, and you want even our local racing to be successful, you have to be able to engage with your customer. The sound system is horrible, including in the pits. You can't even call people up and be consistent with letting your competitors know that they need to come line up. So please address that. The bathrooms in the infield are deplorable. They are so bad. The toilets have been backing up for years. It's been brought up for years. It's time that they are replaced. Metro needs to and clean the sewers out, but run a snake through them. The drainage has been silted in. It's been many years since Metro has come out and cleaned the drains that go out of the Speedway and towards Browns Creek. That's part of the problem we're having with additional flooding in the infield when we have heavy rains, is the fact that the drain systems are not being maintained. So as you're getting ready to do this new contract, and we have one of the biggest races of the season coming up, I'm begging you to please address these things, get crews out here to give us new toilets, clean out our sewage lines, clean the drainage systems, and please help with the PA system and the scoreboard. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. Are there any more here for public comment? Is there anyone else here for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next. Next, we'll have a financial update.
Hello, the financial information presented today is preliminary. And our revenues and expenses for the month of September 2023 may not have been recorded to the ledgers as of October 9th, 2023, when this report was created. The preliminary actuals are as follows. Revenue is approximately $1,044,142. Expenditures are around $88,200, resulting in a net gain of approximately $160,000. Depreciation expense is zero, so the total net gain is roughly $160,000. Below you will find an itemized list of our revenues and expenses. Our top three revenue sources are flea market, corporate sales events, and the divisional fair. Flea market revenue is roughly $296,500, which is 28% of our total revenue. Corporate sales events is around $203,700, which is 20%. Divisional fair is $515,700, which is 49% of our total revenue this month. Our top three expenses are payroll, utilities, and purchase services. Payroll expense is approximately $309,200, which is 35% of our total expenses. Utility expense is $97,100, which is 11%. Purchase services expense is $267,534, which is 30%. For the month of October, our projected revenue is approximately $215,800. Our projected expenses are $363,200. On the Asian report, we have approximately $3,900 in outstanding invoices. All of the promoters have been contacted and invoiced. Overall, we are on track and expect to remain within budget for this fiscal year. This concludes the financial report. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? All right. Moving on to the next, we have event updates from our campus partners to include, I guess, Nashville Soccer.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. For our update, Geodis Park hosted 2 regular season matches since the last meeting and clinched a spot in the Audi 2023 MLS playoffs. The next home match is this Saturday against the New England Revolution. Geodis Park was also home to Pink on Friday, September 22nd, as she played and flew in front of a crowd of over 26,000 fans. From that event, about 8,000 will be sent to the fairgrounds for the parking revenue share, so that will be coming soon if it's not already out there. The North Plaza also hosted the inaugural Mars Pet Care and Pedigree Pup Cup on Wednesday, September 22nd. The event marked the beginning of Mars Pet Care's 15th annual adoption weekend. Several Nashville SC players served as coaches, and Tempo the Coyote was the official referee. All the dogs on site were available for adoption, and about 20 were adopted. Nashville SC is currently in 7th place in the MLS Eastern Conference with a regular season record of 12 wins, 10 draws, and 11 losses overall. 10 losses overall. Anyway, questions?
Questions?
I not really have a question.
Sure.
More like a point of personal privilege. Being a season ticket holder and a Fair Board commissioner, I would like to have some type of parking perk if that's available.
Noted.
For next.
Noted. Put it on my list. Metro Legal did not hear that.
One question, Mr. Chair. So, not a question, just sort of just want your overall take. You've had a couple concerts on site now. what are y'all's top line learnings? Not so much as it relates to the revenue shifting back to the Fair Board, but just more like how you're operating the campus. Are there any big takeaways that you guys have picked up after a couple of concerts under your belt?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things for us is obviously we're a new stadium. It's only been 2 seasons, but what we're finding is most of the people who are coming to the concerts have never been to Geodis Park before. So if you've been to a soccer match, you know where you park, you know how you get in, you know when you leave. You've got all those details sorted out. For the concert folks, they're figuring that out as they go. So it's been a little more challenging on the ingress, egress, and it's just something we have to work on. So we've been over-communicating, but I don't think you can ever communicate enough. So we just keep doing more and more communication from concert to concert to concert.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Any other questions? No, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I guess who else? Okay. Do we have any other partners here? Oh, that's next on the agenda. Yeah. All right. So then we'll have the go over the schedule, the calendar for the facility. This Executive Director.
All right, you have in front of you October, November, and December. We did add, so you've seen this last month because I actually had given you 4 months, so this is a repeat. The only difference on here is Commissioner Hartley, you had asked for road closures. Those are included on this calendar, so you see those as well. I will also say that in regards to the concert, we had a NIAC meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had a conversation about the concert, and the neighborhood expressed their appreciation. They said it was a lot better than, we get better. They were saying that the parking in the neighborhood was better. People were more conscientious, not blocking driveways, and such. So we did get that feedback during the NIAC meeting, very specifically to the concerts. So that is getting better every time. And if it's okay, I would, Scott Jones is here. I thought he could give you an update now that the fair is over and we've had a chance to kind of take some breaths, tell you how it went as now the numbers are coming in.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners and Chairman. I tell you what, I couldn't, I think our weatherman did a great job for the fair. We need to give awards to the weathermen for that because it was beautiful fair weather for 10 days. I could not ask anything better. Attendance was up. That was a good thing at the fair this year. We'll start with our paid parking. We were up about 45% in our paid parking, which was a really good indication of how everything else was going to go with the fair, because being able to get the cars in and be able to park them in a timely fashion is a great thing, and being able to have the racetrack for that was a big plus. Our ticket sales, as far as our daily, just our paid ticket sales, we were up 6,604 attendees paid, up 21%. So that was a good number as far as our attendees. Our ride gross, as far as with our Midway partner, North American Midway, we were up almost $200,000 at ride gross. So we were up 38%. So the folks that did come out to the fair, they enjoyed the rides, the food, and all the fun that we had. If you had a chance to come out and enjoy the fair, I hope you got to come through the buildings and experience the Ag Hall and the Creative Arts and, of course, the marketplace and the different events, and then, of course, the music stages that we had. Some of the things that really make us really happy is our school tickets. Last year we printed roughly right at 90,000 school tickets that went to all of Metro school kids, handed those out. So basically those kids can come to the fair Monday through Friday with a paid adult, and that's how that ticket program has worked. And we basically increased those numbers of redemption, 1,122 it was up, and so we was up 53% on a redemption rate on that. So the school tickets were really good. And we also partnered with the library, the Nashville Library. Basically, they have a summer program where if you read a certain amount of books, you win these prizes. And one of the prizes was an admission ticket with a paid adult. And also you get to ride one ride for free with the carnival. So they got to pick a ride. So it was a good perk for the kids. So we will keep that up. And overall, the fair was, as far as any, it was uneventful. It was great weather. We did have a brief shower on the second Saturday and just a little bit on that last Sunday, about 30 minutes. But overall, it was great weather. So any questions?
Yeah, so I may have missed it. How many people, do you have a estimated amount of people who attended?
Overall attendance of the fair, or paid attendance, we were 37,838, and that's unaudited numbers. The year before we were around 31,000 overall, so we were up. It was a good direction. The last year the state fair was here, we were around 54, maybe to 56,000 paid. So having basically, 2 years of no events here on the property, and then having to rebrand and remake a new fair here, I think we're on our way. So.
Okay. And how many school tickets you said?
School tickets redemption overall on the redemption numbers. Last year we ended up having, sorry, wrong page. We redeemed about 2,100. This year we're at 33, probably 32 something. So we were up on that, which was a significant increase. I think, the thing about the school tickets is you give those out to the principals, and then it's up to the principals to get it to the teachers, and then the teachers to the kids. So what we found out last year, that some teachers did not hand them out. Some schools got them as far as some classes, but then when you got to looking into it a little bit, it's still up to the principals and the teachers' discretion.
Okay. Any other questions?
Scott, thank you for this report. Very helpful and wonderful to see the growth in the fair. So, I don't want to pin you down, and I'm not going to jump on whatever Laura's big plans are for next year, but just real macro, like, what are the big things for next year to be thinking about? What are you and your team, what's the top of mind right now for next year?
We have to continually grow the weekdays. Our weekends will take care of themselves ultimately, and that's in the fair industry as a whole. Any fair you go to in the state of Tennessee or across this country, usually those Saturdays and Sundays are the days people attend the fair. It's the Monday through Fridays is the what you have to struggle with. And for us, we had a few wins this year. We had probably the biggest Friday I remember in probably my 20, I don't want to go that far back, but it's been a long time. But that was due to the fact school was out Thursday for elections. So that's out of our control unless we try to get a school day out or something. But ultimately programming, entertainment, we're in Nashville. We have to stand up on our own in that field at some point and be able to appeal to those folks to come out and get that entertainment dollar. And in Nashville, it's very hard. There's so many music venues in Nashville. We just have to offer something that's affordable, family, that people want to come out to.
And would you say that you met expectations for this year, or you exceeded goals?
Yeah, I think it's just like anything. We exceeded goals in certain areas, and then of course it pointed out in where we need to get to work, roll up our sleeves, and work on and try to just improve and keep. And that's the hardest struggle you have with the fair. Like, this is new facility, even though we're on a campus that's had a fair for over 100 years. This is new. It has changed. Just the routing of traffic, just the look and the feel, and a lot of it is for the good. But just the branding and getting the awareness out to the general public, it's different. It's just like starting over. And we only get one shot at it. You get 10 days. And then it's not like the flea market this month, that didn't work. We'll try something different next month. And then after about 6 months, you figure, hey, that's how that works. We can well, that's 6 years in the fair world. So we definitely have to look at things and try a lot of different new things. And we did have a lot of wins this year, so we're definitely going to continue working hard at that.
Yep. Thank you. I commend you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Is the month of September set in stone each year?
We are pretty much Friday after Labor Day. Historically, years ago, the fairgrounds, we never had a September flea market, so the fair could move around. Then when the Metropolitan government started producing the flea market in-house, they started the September market. So that only allows us 3 weeks, basically, from flea market of August to September. So we're pretty much locked in at those dates due to that.
And I think hearing from what I heard about the state fair, I think that we have probably one of the best dates as possible because of weather. Yeah.
Yes, and to move, for us, we would not want to give up a flea market, so it would put us in the middle of October, and it's one of a little more. It's cooler, but we do get a little more water so it's kind of cold at nighttime. It gets damp. So that's the thing about October fairs. So typically in Tennessee, the last fair is the end of, September, 1st of October due to that. So.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So at this moment, I'd like to suspend the agenda really quick to recognize City Councilwoman Terry Vo from District 17. Terry, thank you for joining us today. And if you'd like to say anything, if possible, you don't have to, but we'd love to hear from you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to go after the fair report because I got to come on the last day and had a wonderful experience, and look forward to encouraging not only District 17 but everyone in the county and beyond to come next year. But thank you all so much. Looking forward to working together over the next 4 years.
Thank you. So next we'll have our Executive Director's report.
I really don't have much because I've been gone for a couple weeks, other than to thank my team for covering while I was on vacation, and certainly our partners with GHP and Pillars and everybody for taking care of Capitol. Really appreciate that, of course. I do just want to mention too, while the numbers in the fair and was growing and it was a big success, one of the other things that we're very grateful for is our ride safety record. Our midway provider takes a lot of time to make sure that the rides are safe, and so there were no incidents there either. That's obviously can be tragic if not handled appropriately, and we've got a really good partner in the North American Midway, so very pleased with them. The other thing I just wanted to mention too is you may notice that we actually have a new podium, but I wanted to draw your attention to it because that was made by one of our fairgrounds employees, Danny Reynolds, and it uses wood from Shed 5 from our old stables that we had up on the hill. We have maintained a lot of the wood that we took down before building these buildings. So that is our mule barn wood, and also some wood from, if you remember, the volunteer village. It was a wooden village that we did programming for the fair. So Danny took those pieces and repurposed them into 2 new podiums for us. So just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you. So next we'll have updates for capital projects. And first, I guess, Ron. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First thing, I'm substituting for Ed Henley tonight, so I'm going to be shorter. in more ways than one. But Ed does an eloquent job, as you recall. Ed manages the finances for these programs. He wants me to remind everybody that the numbers you're seeing are 45 to 60 days old. This is money you've actually spent. It's been through the process. You've got your blue sheets in there. We've had a small amount of activity going to the FF&E side of that. Not much is going on with that group. And that's the expo building, essentially. Fair Park Phase 2, it's under construction. I think about a third. He's showing about a third of that money being expended. Actually, we've done the work for about 3/4 of it. So we've got quite a bit of that money underway in construction. We'll come back to that. And then the infrastructure is mainly engineering at this point. We don't have construction going on. This infrastructure part 2. We don't have construction going on for that, but that's proceeding nicely. If you look out here, I'll just go into my updates on Phase 2. The paving is almost complete for this section and the area over on Bransford around that picnic shelter, the Greenway extension over there. So we put in a new culvert, some other things. So that's moving nicely. We've got a lot of work around the tunnel, but we're waiting till after the last race to finish that. Part 2 infrastructure, Windgrove, intersections in design. We continue to work with WIGO and NDOT and Metro Water as partners on that intersection. And we're trying to resolve any conflicts we may have between those various agencies. It is in the floodway, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. The extension of Speedway Alley from the parking garage at the mixed use program down across Browns Creek to Craighead, that's proceeding in design, and this and some of the work with Phase 2 will be going before the Metro Water's Stormwater Variance Committee, and we've talked about that in the past. We're meeting on that tomorrow to determine the path on how best to package that information up and go back and look at modifying a variance that was put into place in 2017. The mixed use, the Speedway alley between mixed use and the grandstand and Fair Plaza is going to really get into construction seriously here in about a month. And with that, I can just turn it over to Dirk to talk about mixed use. I'm sorry for a lousy voice.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Nice to be with you this afternoon to give you an update on the mixed-use project next door. So we continue to make progress on Block C, which is called 445 Park Commons. As I mentioned last month, we're kind of in the busy but boring phase of construction where there's a lot going on inside but not a lot that you can see from the outside. Right now, that mixed-use building is almost fully enclosed and weatherproof with the exception of the retail storefronts that are going to be fronting Fair Plaza and Benton Avenue Extension. The facade materials are fully installed inside the courtyard where the swimming pool will be, and we've started installing outside facade materials starting on the southwest corner facing Geodis Park. That will wrap around the building in coming months. The balconies for the apartment residences are being installed in the interior courtyard, and those will be moving to the outside for installation over the coming weeks. Interior finishes continue with drywall on the top floor, the 6th floor, now 100% complete. Moving to the 5th floor, they're going from the top to the bottom on the installation of finishes. That also includes plumbing, electrical, and HVAC trades, continuing installation inside the residences. We're still on track to deliver our first residences in the middle of next summer, 2024, and we'll start pre-leasing for applications probably in April of next year. So we're on track, and we're excited to welcome our first residents into the building. The parking structure is largely complete. We're still waiting on permanent power. We hope to have that soon, and as soon as we've got that, we'll be opening that up for campus events, certainly in time for the racing and soccer seasons to start in the spring. As Ron mentioned, we are in design development and permitting for the Fair Plaza and Speedway Alley improvements. Speedway Alley is a priority because it provides access to the building and to the Speedway facilities. We'd like to begin that work right after the All-American 400 concludes on November 5th. And so we'll be working on that through the winter in time to have that ready for the racing season to begin next year. And then design development drawings are underway for Fair Plaza along Benton Avenue. And that's moving along nicely, and that's on schedule, on budget, which is where we like it. We'll also be working with the Fairgrounds team on the timing for the Speedway Alley extension, as Ron mentioned, down to Craighead. That Gate 7 interest has proved to be very, very valuable for not only our construction, but campus events. And we know our residents will appreciate those improvements over Browns Creek as well. And then just on a personal note, we observed and were very fortunate to participate in a lot of the fair activities that the Fairgrounds team put on in September. Terrific event, very engaging. I'm so excited that next September we'll have residents in the building that will be able to participate in those activities as well. So everything that Laura and Scott, their team, have done, we're very appreciative of that, because this is the only residential community in Nashville that has that as a terrific amenity at its doorstep, and I think it's going to be super engaging for our residents. So look forward to working with you next year on making that a success. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question. I'm curious, the Speedway Alley and how all of that is shaping up to take place to start, but we haven't moved yet on the actual speedway. How could that impact the activities over there?
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Yes, sir. We've been coordinating with Bristol and their efforts for their design. Plus, we know what's there now. So what they're building will fit both. So there's a chance, depending on schedules and how much they overlap, if the Bristol deal, if the BMS deal comes together, we may have to make a few minor changes, but if it doesn't come together, what we got meets it. So we are coordinating that. Any more questions?
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. This is probably more of a question for Ron, but a lot of the discussion today, both from Lindsay and from Scott and from Laura even, are about this is a campus in transition. We always have to remember that this is like a long game where we're going from like prior state to future state, be it parking, be it scheduling, be it just the stability overall. So really, I wanted to if you could just touch base real quick, Ron, on the infrastructure projects. I know you said they're in design, but are those on track? And can you kind of sketch out when some of those will start coming into existence? And before you answer, I'm sorry, one thing. And Laura, one thing that might be useful for us, and Jasper, something to think about, is if we could see like a block of like a 10-year period. There's a lot of planned development, and maybe you can get with Dirk and Ron to kind of give us a document that just shows like in 2026, 2027, 2028. That would be helpful for me, I know, to kind of visualize. But sorry to interrupt you, Ron.
Yeah, sure. And we can put that together for you. The components of that infrastructure part to the funding for that, the first thing you're going to see is this area that mixed use we're doing through that participation agreement. Windgrove will probably follow that because we can do a lot of Windgrove without having to go back to the water. It's not dependent on the stormwater variance. The other one, the extension of Speedway Alley all the way across Craighead is got to get that variance taken care of, get it straightened out. Depending on what we have to do with that, then we're also going to have to deal with other approvals because we're crossing Browns Creek. So that start date's going to be difficult to pin down right now, but as soon as possible.
Well, just to push you a little bit, I mean, like, again, we're in a position of, our partners need as much stability as we can give them. And the faster we can move on those, the better. And I'm not saying that's not what, we're all saying the same thing. We're going for that. But I think we really need to try to drive home that we've got to get to a place of higher stability on the campus. It's going to help everyone. It's going to help all of our partners be successful. So I want to see us maybe see some stuff on paper of what the goal is, of what we're going for, and then we can kind of figure out some ways to get ourselves there quicker.
So I agree with you, and it's something I want to bring up later in the agenda. Yeah. But yeah. Did you have?
No, the only other thing I was going to mention that Ron alluded to is anytime we're dealing with Browns Creek, it brings the federal government into the mix. And so when we have to work with the Corps and FEMA, that lengthens the process. And that is one of the kind of wild cards right now with timing, is when they are able to get permits and review for the work we want to do over Browns Creek through those agencies. So that has, and the process, unfortunately, my understanding, has changed from the time we did this bridge on Wedgwood to now wanting to improve the other bridge. So we're navigating a new process also.
But what do you understand?
Thank you. All right. Any other questions, Commissioner? All right, thank you. Any other capital updates? Don't think so. That's it. So I guess there's no old business. The next item on the agenda is new business, and that is consideration of the 2024 contract extension with Track Enterprises. Executive Director.
All right, so based on our conversation at the last board meeting, the direction that the board had indicated was to extend the contract so we ensure that we have a racing season and that Bob can go out and confirm scheduling with all the sanctioning bodies and looking at NASCAR schedules and et cetera as soon as possible. So what we have done is an amendment. There's been a couple changes with dates, but you also see in front of you a spreadsheet per Commissioner Hartley's request that kind of goes and compares the current contract with the amendments to amendment number 3, which you're looking at now. So the changes were to the board to review $1 per ticket over 2,000. So it was a reduction in our shared revenue model for general admission tickets to local races. The threshold was 2,500 and we've brought that down to 2,000. We've added language in there so that it is consistent with our other event contracts, and that is adding interest to late payments, and that is regulated by the state as far as what dollar amount or what value that interest is over 30 days. It just makes this contract consistent with our other event contracts with our other partners. And then we remove the cleanup deposit requirement. That money would just be going back and forth. Bob maintains and has always maintained a pristine track for us. So we remove that section. So you'll see in front of you, I know this is a really, really big document, but what this is, mostly of it is exhibits of prior contracts. That's why it's so thick. So the amendment itself is actually really simple. Erica, thank you so much for working on it while I was gone.
You're welcome.
But if there's any other track changes, that is provided to you as well.
So, do you have anything? Do you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to let the commissioners know that we're looking at Amendment 3 to agreement, the one that's marked draft. Just so you're looking at the right one, because there are several amendments. It says it right at the top, Amendment 3. Okay.
So I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, I guess, because it's not in the amendment, and it would be somewhere in some of these documents that we received. But what is the noise level that Track Enterprises is currently obligated to operate within?
Let me find it in the, so that was, the decibel levels were recorded in Amendment 2 last year. We actually took the rules and cleaned those up and amended it to mid-year. So between the two contracts, so you should see, let me find it because there are a lot of them.
Chair, may I? Laura, I believe it is amendment, the one that's labeled amendment to agreement. So it would be amendment number 1, and then it would be paragraph 3 of that amendment, where it deletes paragraph 2.3 subsection F3 and replace it with the language there, if that makes sense.
So there was an exhibit also added to the previous amendment. I don't know if I see a copy of the exhibit in this packet, but the exhibit talks about the sound levels requirements for each class of vehicles that race, and then reiterates it in general for track rules, and that is provided on Bob's website. And the attachment and the exhibit that we put on the previous amendment summarized those sound level ratings.
So would you happen to know what that number is?
99 decibels within 100 feet of the straightaway.
So how can we see that? I mean, where is it? Where is it in writing?
It's in the exhibit recorded with, I believe, Amendment 2. I just don't see it in this packet.
I think that was my error. I think I left it out of the packet, but I can pull it up.
Yes,
I think I know what it is.
And
I know what you're referring to.
It's been approved by the board, so it is something that we added as an amendment, and the board approved those levels as an exhibit on that last amendment.
I
just not
might
in
jump
here.
in. I think what's going on here is, you're exactly right. Assuming these draft amendments have already passed, which I assume they have,
Yes.
we've agreed to identify specific noise limits and essentially that they'll be incorporated into the contract, but they're not written into the contract. They're on a separate document, which is probably why it's not included in your packet. But that doesn't mean they're not effective and part of the contract. They're just not with Metro Legal's legal papers. They're probably listed on the website or something like that. That's my best guess.
Yes, it was recorded with the contract and filed with the clerk. So, yes.
And I'm working to pull it up now. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, so while we're looking for that answer, any other, don't have any questions?
Just a quick question, and I make you do double duty here, but just to confirm with legal, the first and second amendments have already been adopted, and we are just, are you sure the second one has been adopted? I think that's what we discussed at the last meeting, that we adopted at the last meeting? Okay, cool. So then we're just doing the third amendment, which the question for Metro Legal then is, there's a little summary chart here. Do you understand this is all the substantive changes to the contract?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. And we also provided you with the track
Yeah.
changes so
Yeah.
that you can see them. But yes, those, Laura created that spreadsheet, and those are the substantive changes.
And I read the track
Aside
changes.
from the date itself.
Yeah, and I read the track changes, and I agree with you that those are the only changes to the contract. So with that being said, this reflects, I think, what we talked about. And I think for us, the big macro question is just reinforcing that this is a one-year carryover deal on essentially the same terms except for the ones listed on this document. And I'm supportive of that. But again, back to the general point, which is, we have to drive to stability in the site. And this is a holdover. I mean, this isn't a long-term solution. This is a short-term solution. So that's not really a question. It's more just commentary for the board to think about.
Yeah, because I guess because a concern that I have is being able to afford enforcement, right? So we've, I received a complaint this weekend that it was excessive noise out at the racetrack. Understanding there was a couple other issues. My question is, who's enforcing? Where is the enforcement? How do we know? Now, I did get a list. I was able to secure, and I asked Bob to provide how they monitor the sound at the racetrack. And now we see that, I guess it's 99 decibels at 100 feet. Because my concern is people come to us with noise complaints, we should be able to say, you know what, yes, it was extremely loud that day. Why was that? What happened? Or we're able to say, well, it may have sounded loud in your neighborhood, but according to our numbers, the race was operating within the guidelines. And so right now, I think that we can't say that. And that's a huge concern, especially if people are still complaining about noise. And as we move forward, and I do see in the documentation that I received that there were a couple of instances where people were operating above the noise level that's in the documentation. So how do we assess penalties? How have we been assessing penalties, or not penalties, but like taking a look at it and saying, hey, Bob, I've noticed that there's a couple of cars that have registered over this amount, this noise level. No, my question is for the Fair Board. How are we as a Fair Board monitoring it? If we're saying that we're in our contract, it says that you have to operate at a certain level, and you're required to operate at that certain level. How are we making sure that compliance is done?
Laura, are there existing, so assuming the answer is yes to this, are there existing sound, exactly. Is there a mechanism in place to record sound levels today? And if yes, then I think the answer is pretty easy, which we take those levels, we create a process with Bob. He's agreed to pay a penalty, so then it's just a matter of closing that loop on the back end.
But damages is damages.
Sorry, it's not a penalty. It's not a penalty. I'm not the lawyer for this. I can say it's a penalty, but it's not a penalty. It's clearly liquidated damages because it takes our time to fix all that. So, Laura, do we have sound now?
We do not own sound monitoring equipment. The Fair Board at one point, I can't even remember the year. It was maybe 2011, 2015. Fair Board commissioned a sound study specifically for the track. That's the only time I am aware, but it had always been the responsibility of the track operator to monitor the noise levels and to maintain those records and report on those when asked. That's always been part of the contract, both with this contract and previous contracts.
Well, I mean, and I'm happy if it's okay with you, Jasper, for us to ask Bob that question. But if he has records, then I think it's a process of just having someone sit with Bob after each race and review whether they were over the numbers, and if they were, we assess the penalty. Obviously, we may or may not believe the records, but at least that's a starting point to see what's out there.
And up until this last race, I mean, we've had numerous meetings with Bob on site. This is when Chair Wiener was here, monitoring, looking at those records, confirming locations. That's always, you know, you could move over 30 feet and your readings are going to be very different. So what we had worked with him on, especially this season, is making sure that we're consistent in the monitoring locations. So you're actually comparing apples to apples, because certainly being right up against the wall in turn 4 is going to be very different than, you know, under the grandstands where you've got the reverberations. So we agreed on the technique, the locations, and how to do those. So that is a conversation that actually Bob brings up probably at least once a month about readings, how the cars are performing, if there are any issues. That is follow-up that Bob and I talk about very frequently throughout the season.
Well, and perhaps, you know, subject to how you'd like to handle it, Jasper, you could just provide those in our packet every month, and we could just look at them, and that way we would know whether the numbers were above or below the acceptable noise levels, which I think are listed in our general rules of the Fair Board or Fairgrounds.
And I think to agree to that, also the location of the measurement seems rather important, and it just sounds, intuitively speaking, we might not want to measure it from inside the race. That's not the problem. It's going to be the neighbors complaining about the noise outside of the, right? It's not, the problem wouldn't be if it's too loud inside the event as much as it is too loud for people around the event. Is that
well,
correct?
I think if it's too loud inside, it causes the noise.
Understood. It's just, but
I think they studied it. I think they studied the decibel levels, what it would take inside in order for it to be
what's the
acceptable outside.
output. Granted. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I agree that being able to see those reports, that would be great, and just keep it consistent. It's a way. It gives us a consistent response whenever that's going to be a question that will be asked more and more. So yeah, would love to have that.
No, that's a really good question, because we worked a lot on this when we were developing the sound reduction protocol for the Bristol contract with the sound engineers and the acousticians. There is a correlation, so it's more of a range, and I know that was a long topic that we discussed, but you're right, measuring the sound at the source within the speedway is very much an indication of the levels that you're going to hear in the surrounding neighborhood. The other point, though, is there's other factors, right? There's ambient noise, there's the cloud ceiling and the weather that day. So there are days where it seems louder, but really the readings may be very stable at 95 decibels, but it sounds louder based on the environment and other factors contributing to background noise.
And can I ask another question of the language here? And sorry if I'm going too far back in history here, but also it would be interesting to see, and the very last sentence there's enforcement action shall include but not limited to driver penalties up to and including disqualification. Also seeing the enforcement of those rules that is happening actually and on their end historically, because if we can see that has happened at least a few times, well, what has been the action taken? I think that will adding that to the report will add credibility to this process, right? Because then if not, it just looks like we're doing something a little bit closed doors. So I would like for this to be very transparent.
Totally agree. Any other questions? Concerns?
So going forward, we're gonna ask Bob to give us a report stating the noise information that they calculate during the race. Is that what we're gonna do?
We can decide that. That can be part of the motion. I mean, I personally, though, I would think that it should be something that the Fair Board, that we do, because, I mean, I don't know, I'm not saying that, I don't trust anyone, but if we're sort of overseeing it, we should be able to say what has happened, and maybe check it against their record. But for some reason, I think that the Fair Board, since we're responsible, there should be some type of oversight.
Well, I mean, I guess if we had our own equipment, I agree with you. In a perfect world, I'd love to have sound monitoring equipment, but I also, we don't currently have it, so we have to source it. So perhaps in the interim, we can just see how it goes. Again, there are huge consequences if they, didn't give us accurate information, et cetera. Obviously, there's gray in all of this and how they would do the monitoring. But I think for me, just getting I'm thinking like a chart that just says this is how loud it was in a big green or red box. Green being, this is good. Red being, this is breaking the rules. And then, there's not a lot of interpretation for us to do, but I do agree with you. I mean, in a perfect world, and again, that's sort of my theme for the day is that we're in a period of transition. This is a one-year agreement. We're just trying to sort of stopgap. In a long-term agreement, I would like to have a much more robust sound monitoring plan. I just don't know how much it's worth investing a lot of money into it in that short-term time horizon.
But also, you also think about that we're not just talking about racing. We have concerts on property, we have games on property, so it's not just the racetrack, it's everything else. And then going forward, too, if we're looking at, a host of more activities in the future, now would be the time to invest in something, while it's small, while we can actually manage it and then scale to grow, but it's just, I just think it's something that maybe we need to take a look at, and maybe we can see how much it costs for a sound monitoring system and take a look at it in the next budget.
In my experience, self-reports, of course, although they have obvious deficiencies, they're a great first step, right? So if that's the first source of information, that's great. Totally with you that because the scope is much bigger than just this one thing from a noise perspective, thinking and start planning on investment on that because that's long term, right? And that is a way of checks and balances because it could be the self-reported versus our numbers, and it doesn't have to be there doesn't have to be animosity between those two, right? The whole point is that we want to keep noise at a level that it should be, period. And so investing in that long term makes sense. If we have a source of information today, level, if it's green, red, and then if it's red, what was the action taken? That would be great because it's something that we can also make public very easily, right? With its deficiencies and lack of perfection in the process being obvious.
Not to beat a dead horse, but we should also probably just talk to the larger metro because, there are other facilities that have sound monitoring. Every year I do CMA Fest, I watch out for a SIN going too long because of the sound ordinances related to that. So you might reach out to a SIN or somebody at the Nissan Stadium even.
Any other questions? So I guess how do y'all want to proceed?
Would that require us to hire someone to run that, or are we going to do it ourselves?
I think what I'll do is I'll look for a quote for the service because we also don't. I think it would be best if we wanted to do that, we would either, we would contract with somebody to provide that service. Therefore, they could also interpret the results and present those since we don't have that training.
Yeah, and that's probably a great way of keeping things absolutely neutral, right? It's not the Fair Board saying that you were making this much noise. It's a third party, that it's an expert with the right equipment saying that this is the noise that was recorded that day. So yeah, I think that's a great thing. And understanding how a lot of the budget works inside the Metro machine, I think there's a very strong use case to say, well, we want to invest in that service and or equipment because we want to be very sensitive to the neighbors' concerns about this issue, right? So it's a way of creating our own measurement mechanism there. So I feel there could be good support also on the Metro side to support that as part of the budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 contract extension with Track Enterprises as written, as long as we also investigate sound mitigation services on the at the control of the fairgrounds at the same time. But I'm not making the approval of the contract contingent on anything related to the sound mitigation services.
Yeah, I would second that because I think it's, again, thinking long-term, it's an evolving thing. It's not tied to this contract only, right? It's a more general fairgrounds plan for the noise stuff. So, yeah, second to approve as written.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Further discussion?
So for next week's race, end of this month, whenever, is it next week or November 4th? So on November 4th race, we're just using Bob's calculation, correct?
Yes.
Then the soccer matches and all that we use, what do we use for that?
The Nashville SC is responsible for monitoring sound levels during their concerts and events.
I'll just make for discussion purposes again, not to say it so many times, but we didn't really renegotiate this. This is a carryover agreement, and so we do need to continue to think about what the long-term strategy is. Obviously, this is just a stopgap measure.
I've had that discussion with Metro Legal. We've had that discussion. So, yeah. And Commissioner Owens, that's why I was saying about the, just investing in noise, because we're relying on everyone else to give us the information, and we're responsible ultimately.
Sounds good.
So any other discussion, no further discussion? All right, well, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Hartley?
Aye.
Commissioner Owens?
Aye.
Commissioner Diego?
Aye.
And I will be an aye. So, all right. Oh, yes, Bob, yes.
Can you hear me? I won't take much time, and I know some of you are new, and we have really been persistent on this issue, and I'll be more than happy to show some people what we've done, and again, not spend a lot of time today, but when Sherry Weiner was here, she was in the sound business and went down there, and we really talked a lot through this, how this would work. So I just want to let you know that I'm open. From the promoter, it's better that we have quiet cars. We feel our customers have a better experience. So with that being said, I'm more than on your side. Now, as a practical point, it has been very difficult to get the noise in the right levels, in the right areas and things like that. So we can get into those particulars. I can explain it in depth what Sherry and I worked on, and Laura, for years now. And other tracks, we've taken experience from other tracks. So this weekend, we actually, I think there's a picture in what I brought, we had 3 different people that had to buy new mufflers, and we did penalize people that we found off. So I personally spent the day looking at cars, looking at mufflers. Some cars have 2 mufflers now. So my point to that is we've come a long way, and we realize that might not be perfect because of cool temperatures drop that, if they're right against the wall, the noise. So the location is a great thing of discussion, and I think as we work forward together that we'll come up with even better plans. So I just want to offer that what happened this weekend, that we forced people to buy new mufflers and penalized the few that were over. Out of over 100 cars, we're talking 3 or 4. So we were very proud of our guys that have done a good job when we're only track that makes them do this. So they have to change thousands of dollars of equipment to come race here. So we'll probably lose racers on the November 5th because we're making them have mufflers. But again, we're abiding by it, and I'm all for it. So just so you know that. I think the kids and the people in the grandstand like it better when it's quieter. So it benefits all of us, including the neighbors. Any questions for me?
Yes, sir. I don't have a question. I did want to say when I was talking earlier about the truthfulness of the numbers, that was more of a hypothetical point. I totally agree. I don't have any concerns about the numbers you're providing, Bob. Just want to say that because it's a public record. Thank you for what you're doing for us.
I appreciate that, and I understand that. It's just as we get into it and I get to have more discussion with you, you'll notice the difference in the type of cars, and if we're at 99 or 100 or 101, is, you know, just things like that. The weather dropped on us this weekend, and just humidity and things that we've talked to Sherry at lengths about. The roof being over the grandstands. There's just a litany of things that can come into play. So I look forward to having more discussions with you. We also work very hard on our curfews. You know, we've been done between 9 and 9:30 the whole season, where past promoters will be midnight. So we feel that's helped the community, and we're also on the NIAC meetings every week or every month also. So we're working very hard towards it. I appreciate the confidence of
What was the attendance like last week?
It was a little bit down. I think Nashville's fall break we've learned about that's pretty intensive in this area. People leave town, and then there was the first chilly night that we call it. But we still had over 100 race cars, so people in the pits, and then I think maybe 1,500 people in the grandstands.
Okay.
So again, it was respectful, and it was a good race done by 9:30. That's something else I'll start providing you is the times of finish. We're very proud of that. We work really hard on it. So, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So one last thing I would like to discuss before I entertain a motion to adjourn, is that I've reached out to each one of you to try to see if a particular date was available, November 4th, for a sort of board retreat / training. So November 4th, and I know Commissioner Owens, you had mentioned that a particular time would work better, but I think you would like to go to the Titans in that morning with your young men. So think of your afternoon. Yeah. You know, they're having a father-son thing out there. You don't know about that? I got one up on you. But I would like to have a retreat with the board members and staff and Metro Legal so that we can discuss a few things and sort of everyone can be caught up to speed, so that way come January 2024, when we kick off the new year, we would be a little bit farther in our in the knowledge that we have about the operations of the fairgrounds. And so November 4th, and then also part of that, the reason why I picked another reason for that date is because the race is going on. There is a race that will be going on. Right now I'm trying to, Christy is checking to see if 50 Forward is available. We will know tomorrow if 50 Forward was available. We can't use this facility because that's already booked. So it's a good day for us to be around. So hopefully we will do our board training and our board training / retreat, and then we're able to then come over to the property and then go visit with some of the racers, and then visit with the people that are here to see the property in full action, in full swing. So we're looking at 12:30 to 3 on November 4th. And so we'll send that was the time that everyone was available. So we'll send around the actual place once we hear back from 50 Forward, if they are available during that time. So, and it will be sort of a team building / education retreat. I keep saying retreat. It's only like 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. But, I'm just trying to make it sound as much fun as possible on a Saturday. But,
Mission accomplished.
So with that being said, staff, I'm going to send a list of items that I would like to cover, for us to have available at the retreat. And another reason too, we were hoping to have our fifth person on board by now, but we are waiting for the mayor and council to approve the nomination for the 5th board member. But in the meantime, I think with the 4 of us, we can go ahead and then we'll have a packet for that person available, so they would have all the information that we have. Sounds good.
It's like a 4 alpha situation.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone have any other discussion before I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn this October meeting.
Second.
All right, so moved and second in opposition. Nope, hearing none. We are adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.